All right, we'll get started. All right, Paul. Just before I ask you to mute yourself, Paul, can you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. All right, so if everyone would please mute yourself and turn off your video. Sometimes we have a little bit of problem with bandwidth, so it makes things a little less choppy if everybody is off video. There's going to be some opportunities, of course, for asking specific questions, just to kind of keep things moving along with the presentation. If you would please just add your questions to the chat as we go, or hold off until the end before asking. So we're very excited. We have another round of SDBII grants that is currently open. So this year we have the Specialty Processing Equipment Grant, which is essentially the same as the SDBII grant that was available last year that focused on specialty processing equipment for milk and dairy. And we have the Dairy Business Planning Grant, which is similar to the Beginning Processor grant that we had available last year, but has broadened a little bit in who it's available for and how we're thinking about kind of employing that grant. So jumping right into it. Let's see, I think I've gone a little further. So just to be clear on what SDBII is, it's helpful, I think, to give some context for what the program is. We're a relatively new program. We started in 2019 with a grant from USDA AMS. So far, over $38 million has been devoted to our program. So that involves business grants or business subawards. So USDA awards money to us. We subaward that to dairy businesses. We started with a much narrower focus, specifically on value-added products on sort of the processing end of things. We broadened a little bit. Earlier this year, we did our first specifically farm-focused grants, dairy farm-focused grants. So we've added on to the processing grants that are part of our portfolio and are the subject of what we're talking about today, especially with the specialty processing equipment grant. So just to illustrate that a little bit more clearly, USDA funds the grants that we're able to award, and it also funds the technical assistance and educational programming that we're able to do. You can visit our website for some more information on the different programming that's available. For instance, two weeks ago, we just had our Southeast Value Added Dairy Conference in Nashville. We also offer a whole host of decision-making tools, of workshops and different programming throughout the year. We're going to host a short course in Wisconsin in October. We're going to visit World Dairy Expo. We do a lot of really interesting things to support value-added dairy, and as I said, as we're broadening the focus of our program, also supporting dairy farms in general. So our program is hosted at University of Tennessee Animal Science, but it serves the whole Southeast. So we have partners that we work with, NC State, KDDC, Center for Profitable Agriculture, Penn State. We have worked with on some short courses online that fill folks in on some of the requirements as far as the regulatory environment for dairy processing in some of the southeastern states. We work with those folks to do the programming, and they help in many cases. They help us facilitate the awards that we're able to make to dairy businesses, and then half of our funding has to go directly to these grants for dairy businesses. So the purpose of the SDBII dairy business grants is to diversify dairy product markets to reduce risk and develop higher value uses of dairy products, promote business development that diversifies farmer income through processing and marketing innovation, and to encourage the use of regional milk production. So that sort of last component, as we've broadened, has taken the form of our farm business grants. But as I said, those are offered in the late winter and spring, and our specialty processing equipment grant and dairy business planning grant are both offered in sort of the late summer, and then will be due in the early fall. So in this case, October 16th is going to be the due date. And another important question is, who can you reach out to for help? You can always contact me. I play a coordination role for all of our grant programs. But you can also reach out to the person from our team that's been assigned to your state. So especially if you're in Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Louisiana, myself and my boss, Dr. Elizabeth Eckelkamp, who is the program director for SDBII, are the folks to check in with, and you can use our grants email. You can also use, we share that and both have access to that. You can also use our personal emails, which are and all of this contact information, of course, is available on each one of the grant pages for each of the grants on our SDBII website. I'm going to share this presentation online and via email with everybody that's joined. I will share the recording. I will also share a PDF of the PowerPoint, so you'll have access to all of the links. So anybody who's furiously scribbling down links and email addresses, you'll have access to this after the fact. So don't feel like that's necessary. If you're in Kentucky, Arkansas, Virginia, and West Virginia, Jennifer Hickerson is the main contact from KDDC, and more than likely Jennifer will help you to find somebody in your state that would be a good resource to help you out with drafting your grant application. So similarly, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi, the folks that are your go-to are Brittany Whitmire and Dr. Stephanie Ward from NC State. So who can apply to these two grants and to our grants in general? So I alluded to earlier the fact that our program has expanded pretty rapidly as the years have gone on. So we started with just Tennessee. We grew to Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And currently, we serve Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Puerto Rico. So a useful visual for that is our logo, includes all of the states that we serve. We have to sort of add Puerto Rico to that visual, but that's the territory that we are currently serving, and that's most likely to not expand too much further in the near future, at least not in the next year, certainly. So applicants must either operate a permitted dairy farm or operate a permitted dairy processing facility. So that's the way that we define what a dairy business is. And they also, basically have to be selling the product for a profit. Unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible to apply by themselves. University creameries are not eligible to apply by themselves. There could be opportunities where, where a university creamery or farm teams up with a farm and applies jointly. That is definitely an option. So those are sort of the parameters. In order to be eligible, there needs to be at least one permitted dairy farm or dairy processing business that applies. We also are not able to fund any projects that relate to raw milk, regardless of what the standard may be for your particular state in terms of selling raw milk. The project needs to be focused on dairy products that are edible. We have funded some, at least one project that related to soap, but that project was also tied to cheese and to ice cream. So there needs to be sort of that element of a permitted, regulated sale of dairy products on the processing side. So what grants are currently available? The grant application is currently open for the Specialty Processing Equipment Grant and the Dairy Business Planning Grant. So I'm going to spend the rest of this presentation going into some of the particulars of those grants. If you have applied previously, or if you've read a previous year's RFP and maybe didn't apply, some of this will be familiar, but there are a few key changes. So I'll spend a little bit of extra time going over those key changes, and I'll also explain for folks that maybe are just learning about SDBII and our grant offerings, what the terms are for these two grants. So the first one I'm going to go over is the Specialty Processing Equipment Grant. So the purpose of this grant is to spur value chain and commodity innovation. So creating new products, new ways to use milk that are innovative, and new ways to use milk maybe that are novel generally, or that are just new to your farm or new to your processing facility. Facility and process updates for processors. So purchasing specialized equipment, and it has to involve in some way, shape, or form processing milk. So one of the stipulations for our program is that we can't buy sort of general use equipment. We can't purchase an air conditioning unit for your whole facility. We can help you to purchase a new walk-in cooler or a new walk-in freezer, cooling either fluid milk or freezing and hardening finished ice cream. Those count as processes. We can fund a boiler that's involved in the pasteurization of the milk. So this year's round will have a $300,000 maximum award. There's $1.92 million available in this cycle. At least 6 grants will be awarded. That's sort of how those numbers divide into each other. We expect to make quite a few more than just those 6 grants. Generally, we award applications for various size projects. So it's likely to be double or more than just 6 grants. With that being said, the specialty processing equipment grant is competitive, and the top tier applications are the ones that will be accepted. So taking your time and filling out the application, reading the RFP thoroughly, you've done a good thing and made a good start by either joining us live for this presentation or watching it on our website after the fact. Reaching out to myself or another one of the state level coordinators, reaching out to folks in extension, folks that are in your state agriculture agency, and others that you may know that are knowledgeable about the type of project that you're hoping to undertake. Those are all key elements for creating a successful application that's going to be viewed as competitive. So the allowable costs for specialty processing equipment grant, we decided on sort of a boring name for the grant because we want it to be obvious what we can fund. So specialized milk or dairy processing equipment is the top line that needs to be the focus of the grant. But with that being said, there are also allowable costs for professional fees relating to consultants, maybe creating a marketing plan to help you sell the new product that you might be creating. Let's say you're purchasing equipment to make mozzarella. It's allowable to work with somebody to help you to figure out how to market that mozzarella far and wide and make the project a success. Also, limited runs for if you're looking to do a new size, to do a new flavor, to sort of test out the market, then packaging could be an allowable cost, but it needs to feed back into that main project, which centers around processing equipment that's allowing you to expand your capacity, become more efficient, or produce new products. Unallowable costs, sort of broadly speaking, real estate purchases are not allowable. Repayment of loans or mortgages are also not allowable. Rent or contract payments for time periods extending beyond the 12-month period allowed for projects that are eligible are not allowable. So that's kind of a funny way of saying that you can rent either general purpose equipment, or you could rent a space, let's say in a retail in a retail storefront, under this program, but that lease would have to terminate after the 12-month period. You'd have to renew it if you decided to continue to rent that space. Legal fees for lawsuits or disputes are not allowable. However, professional fees for a lawyer to form an LLC or business structure could be allowable. Lobbying, fundraising, and political activities are certainly not allowable. If you would like to go in and sort of read all of the allowable and unallowable expenses under the DBII program from USDA's perspective, which is sort of the overriding, the overriding set of rules for grant programs. You can click on this link from the presentation and read this document. It's certainly useful to do so and gives you a good sense of the parameters of how our program operates. As I alluded to earlier, you really we haven't set down a specific percentage, let's say, of funding that needs to be put towards processing equipment. But as a rule of thumb, I think I would say if your project has more than 25% of the costs that are not related to purchasing and installing processing equipment, relates more to marketing and purchasing supplies and consumables for the project, for the products that maybe you're making, then your project is not going to be very competitive. So it's best to, first and foremost, make sure that when you're applying for this grant, that's called Specialty Processing Equipment Grant, that you're focusing on specialty processing equipment. Some examples of allowable projects, and these are scaled down from what you may be applying for, given the cap of $300,000, but a project to fund the purchase of vat pasteurizer to create a new line of flavored milks, a project to fund the purchase of a cream separator to produce cream products, or to purchase a cheese drain table to increase the capacity of your cheese production. So we can fund lots of different types of projects. If you have specific questions at the end, we can kind of take a look at some of the different allowable and unallowable projects through Specialty Processing Equipment Grant. So one of the new features of this grant is a match. So previously, we have not included a match requirement for this grant. As we've expanded to work with sort of a larger world of potential grant recipients, in working with not just dairy processors and producer processors, but also dairy farms. We have, in order to make the funding go farther and in order to ensure that folks are also investing in the projects that they're applying for, we've incorporated a 25% match, which is calculated against, and this is important, it was calculated against the request amount. So I've kind of illustrated this in a simple way below. For each dollar if you write a successful grant through SDBII, that you get in grant funds, you need to have a cash match for 25 cents of allowable costs. So if it's an unallowable cost, if it's for construction, if it's for purchasing land to build a new creamery on or any storefront on, there's space in our budget form for you to tell that part of the story, but that can't be part of your cash match. So this sometimes becomes a little bit confusing. The match seems pretty intuitive, but it gets counterintuitive quickly if you confuse the total project cost versus the amount you're requesting. So if you are calculating this match against the total project cost, then that'll add up to 20% of the overall project. So for every 4 quarters that you get in SDBII funds, you get 1 quarter. So if you put those together, that's 5 quarters or a fifth or 20%. So so just to kind of clear that up, I know it seems like I'm belaboring the point a little bit, maybe, but it is enough to tie your brain in a knot if you get those 2 amounts confused as far as how it's being calculated. So getting started with your grant, the first thing that you want to do is go onto our website, and you're going to want to start with the request for proposal for either the specialty processing equipment grant, or if you're applying for the dairy business planning grant, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute here. You want to read that request for proposal. That is going to have all of the instructions, all the information that you're going to need in order to submit a competitive grant, and make sure that you are submitting a grant that follows all of the rules and is in line with what we're expecting. From there, you'll want to take a look at the grant application, and then once you have reviewed those 2 items, then you can start to dive into your budget workbook, and start soliciting quotes for equipment and potentially services, and construct a project budget. We also make available to applicants the grant rubric that the review committee is going to use to score each one of these grants. So that's useful as well to read through that as you work through each section. Have that open, potentially even print it out, and read over it carefully to see just exactly what we're looking for. Okay, moving on to the dairy business planning grant. For this grant, there's a $30,000 maximum award, but there's no match required. There's $250,000 available, so we'll be able to make at least 8 grants. So the focus of this grant is to sort of plan for the future, to figure out what the next stage for your business is going to be. The focus areas are leveraging the experience and judgment of reputable industry experts to evaluate the feasibility of a proposed new enterprise business or marketing approach, process, or major investment, increase the applicant's working knowledge of their existing business and or future business or future enterprise, gain a certification, credit, or educational experience that improves the competitiveness of the business or its workforce, or utilize legal services to strengthen the business structure or succession plan. So this, as you can see from those criteria or those focus areas. This can apply both to businesses that are in the processing or the farm area of the dairy industry. So this grant is not only focused on dairy processing. It could be employed by a dairy farm that has no interest in pursuing a value-added enterprise in the future. So that's the element that's different for this grant versus the beginning processor grant that was available last year. That the focus is broad for any dairy business as we've defined it, to pursue some planning and some services that strengthen their business long term in terms of the decision making that they're entering into for the future. So just to go through what some of those use cases could be for this grant. It could be a dairy farm conducting a feasibility study exploring the viability of starting an on-farm creamery with the help of a qualified and experienced consultant. So that's been has been mainly how this type of grant has been used previously. We're hoping that folks will also use it to strengthen their corporate governance structure. So for instance, if your business has a set of bylaws and maybe they were drafted a long time ago and sort of need an overhaul and need to adapt to fit the current structure of the business and potentially of the family or families that are part of that business, this could be an opportunity to get some funding to update that corporate governance structure. You could also hire a certified crop advisor to help you plan for transitioning to a different way of raising crops, or of altering your farm in another way. You could also hire a business consultant to help in drafting a business plan. That could be a component of an application, or a group of cheesemakers could get together and apply for money to attend a cheese course to improve their cheese making skills, or ice cream makers could apply to attend, for instance, Penn State's ice cream making course. Those are all allowable uses of this grant. So we've broadened the number of ways that you can utilize this. You could also hire a food scientist to help you develop or update a food safety plan, or to conduct third-party auditing if that's something that you need in order to work with a grocery store. If you needed to develop nutritional panels, those could also be ways of utilizing this. They could also be a part of an equipment, specialty equipment grant if it ties into the product that's being created. So the scoring criteria for both grants overlays pretty closely with the different sections. So the grant application overall, if your grant application is orderly and neat, that's sort of an easy way to gain 5 points right off the bat. The goals alignment, there's 10 possible points that you can earn on that section. The summary is a very important component of your narrative. You're going to want to, in a concise way, make it clear what you're doing, and how you're doing it, and how the funding is going to connect point A to point B, in terms of what you're hoping to achieve with your project. The work plan. So the work plan should be a very detailed explanation of what specific steps you're going to take, how long you think that it's going to take for each step. So for instance, if you are notified in November of this year that you are awarded a grant, your contract might start in February or March of 2024. So what are you going to do first? Are you going to order your equipment? What have your equipment vendors told you as far as lead times for delivery of that equipment? What have your contractors for installation told you it's going to take for them to get that installed? How long is that going to take? How are you going to continue to run your business while maybe you're putting in a new pasteurizer, or reconstructing a cooler that can create havoc? So what is your plan to manage potentially that havoc that can result from the growing pains of on the one hand, making reinvestments, which are really important, but on the other hand, getting the day-to-day work done. So we want to know that you've thought about that intensely, and have a plan laid out for how you're going to accomplish that. The business fundamentals. So broadly speaking, those business fundamentals should explain how this project is going to lead to the long-term success of your business, how it's going to keep your business viable long-term. The budget. Your budget is going to need to be supported with either quotes, or in the case of hiring a consultant, some kind of a proposal that lays out specifically what you would be looking to purchase, and what the specifications are, what the scope of work is, and you're going to want to include that in a detailed way in your budget. In the case of the equipment grant, you're going to want to include your match and make sure that match is in line with the 25% of your request. And you're going to want to make sure that the quotes that you include in your grant are descriptive in the same way, and it's easy to discern this sort of purchase is aligning with, or this budget item is aligning with this estimate or this quote. Other considerations come into play as far as sort of broader impacts that may be felt. This is sort of an opportunity to capture some of those less tangible benefits, perhaps, or community-wide benefits, industry-wide benefits, and give you some credit for those. So especially letters of support can be useful to demonstrate that, and their requirement on both grants. So how do I access and submit the grant? So first, read the request for proposal in full. Reach out with questions to one of your state coordinators. Download and save the application to your computer. That one is key. Don't sort of click on the application and start working immediately. Make sure that your work is being saved, that you're not going to close a screen and lose all of your work. So download it, save it, and even better than starting work in the PDF, work in a Word document first, and then transfer it over to the PDF, just to be extra safe that you've got everything in one place, and you know that you're not going to lose it. And when you're all done, you're going to email your application with accompanying documents. So your letters of support, your quotes, to sdbii.grants@utk.edu. And your application will need to be in by October 16th of 2023 at 3 p.m. So if you submit at 3:01, then it will be a sad day. So make sure to be ready to submit the night before. Hopefully, get it together and get it ready so that you can submit before that deadline, because it's crushing to put in so much work into a grant application and then submit after the deadline and not be eligible. Another excellent step to take as soon as you can is to apply for a unique entity identifier through sam.gov. Do be careful. There are a lot of sites out there masquerading as sam.gov that are not sam.gov, that are not government websites. Obtaining a UEI should not cost you anything. In some cases, if you ask for help and somebody to be assigned to renew a UEI, that can cost some money, but that shouldn't be necessary. If you have one, even if it's lapsed, you should be able to get in there and renew it, or to get a new one if you've never had one previously. So UEI is the new system that has replaced the DUNS number. It also UEI is interrelated with CAGE number. So some of that may sound like ancient Greek, but that's the new system that the government has for tracking grant recipients, basically. So you don't need a UEI to apply. You will need one if you are awarded a grant, and if you don't have one at the time that the contract is ready to be signed, then it's going to delay your start date. So UEI is a good thing to get in place. There are a lot of other grant opportunities out there that you don't want to miss out on, and a UEI will be needed for a lot of them if they're through USDA. So we have some resources here that give you a walkthrough of that's hopefully fairly painless in obtaining a UEI. All right, so that sort of brings us to the end of the presentation portion. And it looks like I've got 3 questions in the chat so far, so I'll just start with those, and then if folks would like to sort of mute themselves and ask questions live, that's great as well. So the first one I have here is, just to clarify, are dairy businesses that sell value-added products that aren't edible, like soaps, lotions, etc., eligible to apply? So the answer to that is yes. However, there needs to be some element of the project that is an edible product for specialty processing equipment grant. You can't have a project that is solely soap or lotions. So that's a little bit of an area that is there's a way to have that project, but it needs to be a component of a larger project that has to do with an edible product. So hopefully that answers the question. Is renting space in a commercial kitchen allowed? Yes, so renting space in a commercial kitchen could be allowed. It would just have to be clear that, you know, this piece of equipment is specifically for that that business that is the grant applicant, and of course the applicant would need to have a pre-existing dairy business in some other shape or form. If, say, you had a dairy farm and you were applying to start making ice cream in a commercial kitchen, in order to be most competitive for specialty processing equipment grant, I would recommend that you start by doing the feasibility study on starting this new enterprise, which is the value-added enterprise of making ice cream, potentially in a commercial kitchen. Because it is certainly more difficult if you don't have a pre-existing value-added dairy business to be competitive for that grant unless you've done a feasibility study. You're technically eligible, but your chances of being successful would just be a lot higher. You'd have to really show that you'd more or less created a feasibility study on your own and gone through that level of rigor in business planning. Is this so this started at 1 o'clock ET, so Eastern time. So I'm sorry if there's anybody that joined a little bit later. I know that we do span some different time zones, and I try to make sure to make clear that our deadlines and our start times are on Eastern time. But if you missed the first portion of this presentation, then the recording will be available online, and I'll send it out to everybody that's registered. So don't worry if anybody didn't get to join. All right. Does anybody have any further questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Smith, and I do have a question. When I came on and downloaded the information and I went to request for proposal for processing equipment, it said the application was closed.
Oh, it may just be that something wasn't updated. That most likely is just from last year. Hopefully we've updated that, but I'll make sure that that it's stated clearly. So it's open and will close at the due date on October 16th at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
When you speak of documentation, are you looking for analysis of the potential of, once you have the new equipment, the growth potential? And are you looking for that in dollars and cents or in volume?
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of different ways that we'd like to see the outcomes or impacts of your proposed project. So one of them is the payback period, you know, for that specific piece of equipment. You know, is it justifying itself? Is it justifying the investment of SDBII funds and some of your own funds? And you know, what is the period of payback? Have you sort of thought through that and done some projecting in terms of how that's going to play out? And you know, there may be other sort of metrics that you use to support the need for this piece of equipment. You know, if for instance, you know, you could do things in half the time with a larger pasteurizer. And that's taking away from the farm side. You know, you want to put that into dollars and cents in terms of the opportunity cost of you know, of working in the facility versus being able to go out and you know, make sure that the farm is well managed. But you can also speak in terms of you know, of the hours that are being taken and some of those other things. You know, you may also want to if you have an existing value-added enterprise, you could put together a Google poll if you wanted to go, if you were doing chocolate milk and you wanted to branch out into strawberry milk or something like that, or you wanted to start doing ice cream, and survey your existing customers to figure out what they'd be willing to spend, or how many of them would be highly interested in purchasing ice cream from you rather than just fluid milk. So there are lots of different metrics that you could use to support the viability of a project in terms of the processing capacity of your plant, in terms of you know, the payback period for the piece of equipment, for in terms of the expected revenue and increase in sales that you would be able to achieve. So those would all be metrics that you'd want to include in the business fundamentals section of your application.
My last question is, if you received a USDA grant to build your processing facility, would this interfere, or can you apply for this grant if you had that one previously, years before?
So that won't interfere in any way. And
Okay.
that brings up another point that if you have received an SDVII grant previously, you're welcome to reapply. You'll, in this grant cycle, you can apply for one or the other. Each grant cycle you can apply for one or the other. You can't apply to two grants that have exactly the same due date. But if you have an open grant from last year, even if it's, you know, even if it's the same grant, even if it's an equipment grant from last year, as long as you are in good standing and have used up your funds and have reported on your grant in the way that you're expected to, then you are welcome to reapply again for funding. And there's a space to sort of include that. No, we won't hold it against you if you've had successful grant applications in other areas as well. To us, that, you know, shows some viability in the fact that you're going out and pursuing the opportunities that are available to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? All right, well, we'll say going once, going twice, going three
Well, if you're
times.
gonna ask that, I'm gonna ask another question.
All right,
and I
absolutely.
don't-
Yeah, thank you.
I do not don't want to monopolize this, but if this grant would cause you to save labor
Mhm.
and reduce your cost of operation, would that be more value added, or if it's going to increase the output? How do you look at those things if you're going to save money or you're going to bring more product to market?
So,
You have a point system, I guess. when I
oh,
ask you.
yeah. So no, we would look at that as sort of interchangeable. If there's cost savings, you know, because you're becoming more efficient and have more capacity, then that that dollar amount is interchangeable with you know, I guess even if you were staying at the same level and it was within reason, I mean, then there wouldn't be a higher premium put on necessarily just selling more and having more revenue.
Okay.
But it you know, with that being said, you know, you shouldn't apply for equipment just so that, you know, you can work and of course nobody does this in the dairy industry, but so that you could work a 6-hour day and it's not justified on you know, it's not justified and it's not needed. If you have equipment that is scaled to your operation, then, you know, you wouldn't be competitive. If you have equipment that is holding things up and it is inhibiting you from doing other business activities and there's an opportunity cost there, and that is a choke point in terms of where your labor is getting allocated, then that's when you would want to point to some labor savings.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, well, I think that we will end it there. If there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you all again for joining, and we will make this recording and this presentation available to everybody. Don't hesitate, as I said, to you know, either give a call or send an email if you have questions about this. And everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.